For the sake of the mission, I chased after Willow for 3 years, and she strung me along for 3 years. Her attitude was something I could never satisfy. Her tests were something I could never pass. So, I failed. All I could do was sit and wait for the system to erase me. But the system said instead, I'm the heiress of the system clan, the crown princess of the cheat code world. How about I grant you one wish? I laughed. So I half-jokingly said, if you really can, give Willow a system, make me her target. To my surprise, the system agreed, but then she warned me, if she fails her mission to win you over, she'll be erased. So, do you really want that? Do I? What a joke. I'd love nothing more. Chapter 1. Tonight is her engagement party with her dream guy, Makoto. I once half-jokingly told Willow, if you don't marry me, I'll die. What would you do then? At the time, she casually brushed it off and said, George, don't joke around. She didn't even bother to glance up at me. Tonight is also the night I officially declare the failure of my mission. When I heard the system announce the failure in my mind, I was sitting on a rooftop, overlooking the city. The system said, Host, you're not thinking of jumping, are you? It was rare to hear the system sounding so anxious. For some reason, it made me feel comforted. I laughed and said, how could I? I shook my head. You've declared my failure, and somehow I feel relieved. I no longer had to be some woman simp day and night, watching her flirt with another man, even if the price was death. I asked, when are you going to erase me? Looking down at the traffic below, I imagined the countdown to the end of my life. I said, look at all the neon lights down there. And yet, I can't find my way. The system asked, Host, do you really want to die that badly? Tonight, she was talking more than ever. Did I really want to die that badly? If I did, I would have quit this mission long ago. I'd been trying so hard to stay alive. The system asked again, if you had one last day, what would you want to do? I always called my system Missy affectionately. Her voice was gentle, but her words often filled me with despair. I said, then I'd want to see the ocean and lose my mind a little. So that's exactly what I did. In early June, the water was still chilly, but I put down my phone, took off my jacket, and dove in. I actually love the ocean, the feeling of being completely free in the water. But because of Willow's tragic past, she was afraid of water, so we rarely ever went to the seaside. There weren't many people on the beach. Not many people went as wild as I did, either. Standing on the shore, I shouted at the sea, grant the wish, grant the death of the toxic girl, all of you, grant it. I even saw someone holding up their phone, filming me. Honestly, who cares? I was about to die anyway. When death approaches, even shame becomes irrelevant. After I finally swam enough, I climbed out of the water and sneezed several times in a row. I even joked with the system, Missy, what do you say? How about letting me die of meningitis after catching a cold from playing in the water? The system stayed silent for a while. I went on. But do me a favor, make it dignified. Let me delete my browser history on my phone and laptop before I die. I never realized I could be this chatty. I guess the system didn't either. Suddenly, the system said, you're not going to die. What? I was so surprised I even forgot I was putting on my pants and nearly tripped. She said, Host, did you not know? I'm the heiress of the system clan, the crown princess of the cheat code world. How about I grant you one wish? I laughed. Since when did the system's humor stat get this high? So I jokingly said, then how about this, you give Willow a system too, and make me her target. But the next second, she replied, okay, binding complete. I stared blankly. You're serious? I asked. The system answered, of course I am. I immediately regretted it. Can I change it? That wish feels like a total ripoff. She responded, nope. Once granted, a wish is non-refundable. I was speechless. Fine. Better than nothing. That night, I came down with a fever. When my temperature spiked, I thought I saw my great-grandmother. In my dreams were scenes from the 3 years I chased after Willow. She once said she was craving spicy chicken feet from the South District. So I crossed half the city to get them for her, only to find her with Makoto. Makoto looked at me, smiled, and said, thanks for the trouble, then had me dismissed. She would call me to pick her up drunk from the club. And after carrying her up 6 flights of stairs, utterly exhausted, she'd smile and say, George, I just couldn't bear to see Makoto work so hard. She'd give me hints and hope. But whenever I tried to confess, she'd change the subject immediately. The next day, my fever broke. Sniffling, I realized I was still alive. I pulled open the hotel curtains, full floor-to-ceiling windows. Right in front of me, sunlight and the sea. It felt like I'd been reborn. I asked, Missy, are you really not going to erase me? I was still suspicious about what had happened the night before. The system answered with a haughty tone. You're just lucky you got me. The crown princess of the system world, she continued. But she's not as lucky as you. If she doesn't successfully win you over, she'll be erased. So, George, can you bear it? Chapter 2. Clearly, before I had time to figure out whether I cared or not, my little breakdown had already gone viral online. Young master of the Wong family heartbroken. Attempts suicide by drowning. That headline left me speechless. I mean, I looked completely happy in the video. But the article content was even more dramatic. It claimed I had peacefully embraced death. I had no choice but to go online and clarify, I'm not dead. I'm alive and well, to avoid people saying I'd attempted suicide. I even added, wasn't trying to die, just enjoying the ocean. And yet, the clip of me shouting at the top of my lungs, grant the wish, grant the death of the toxic ex, all of you, grant it, started spreading like wildfire. The comment section was filled with one-word replies, all perfectly aligned, grant it, all that just for insulting someone. It got so popular it was almost embarrassing. Not long after, I got a call from Willow. She asked, you went to the seaside? I replied, yeah. In my head, I added, yeah, went to the seaside to curse you out. She asked, vacationing? I replied, just here picking oysters. Again, in my head, here to curse you out. She hesitated for a moment, then said, can you come back? I said, sure. That one word seemed to make her breathe easier. Then I followed with, yeah right, like hell I'm coming back. I hung up immediately and felt a wave of satisfaction wash over me. Then I remembered to ask the system, you said you gave her a system, does she have it now? It's bound, the system answered, bound right when they were cutting the cake. This system really knows how to pick the moment. Chapter 3. Even though Willow had a strategy system, I guessed she thought this task was easy. After all, in her eyes, I was nothing more than a shameless simp. But since she liked Makoto that much, would she really break up with him? Or would she try to have it both ways and not let go of either side? I asked, is her success condition for the mission also to get engaged? If that was all, then I could see why she'd be so confident. The system replied, yes, as long as you two get engaged, she can stay alive. Host, doesn't that sound simple? Simple, but also not simple. If it were really that simple, I wouldn't be facing elimination. My feelings toward Willow were more like a contract relationship. As for her feelings toward me, disposable. She called and dismissed me at will. Honestly, I'd already stopped wanting anything from her. When I got Willow's call, I was still sleeping soundly on the king-sized hotel bed. She asked, sleeping. She rarely ever called me unless she needed me to do something. Last night, I sat by the sea with a bottle, drinking and feeling the ocean breeze. That kind of reckless freedom felt amazing. So being woken up too early today left me with a splitting headache and a nasty case of morning grump. I hung up. When she called again, I just shut off my phone. Then came the sound of knocking at the door. George, open up. I know you're in there. Well damn, we just gotten engaged and she already chased me all the way here. Then again, it made sense. After all, she wanted to survive. I opened the door. She looked overjoyed at first, but when she glanced down, her cheeks flushed. She said, put on some pants first, will you? Only then did I realize, I'd rushed to open the door without putting any on. I frowned and was just about to speak when a voice came from behind me. Gio, who's bothering us this early in the morning? I quickly turned around. A girl in a camisole nightdress, with nothing underneath, walked out from the other room, rubbing her hair and still half asleep. I couldn't help but glance back at Willow. Her fury was unmistakable. She grabbed my arm and demanded, furious, George, what the hell is going on here? Aren't you going to explain yourself? Hell, I wanted to know what was going on too. I'd literally just woken up, but looking at the furious Willow in front of me, I suddenly laughed. I said, Miss Lou, what you see is exactly what's happening. And this is my private life. I don't owe you any explanation. Chapter 4. It was me who kicked Willow out. Her huffing and puffing as she stormed off actually amused me. I asked, all right, speak up, where did you come from? As I got dressed, I motioned for the woman across from me to cover herself up properly too. She said delicately in a pinched voice, Gio, how could you forget me? Right now, she really was acting like a pretentious coquette, the kind who tries too hard to be delicate and pitiful. Her eyes brimmed with tears as she added, last night you dragged me inside by force. I looked at her, deadpan. Are you trying to scam me? She blinked, then dropped the act. Okay, fine, Gio, I'll tell the truth. She said her name was Sophia, and with a pout she added, all right, I admit it, I came with you willingly last night. You didn't even do anything to me. Happy now? She pointed at her dress and said, it's been hours and my dress still isn't dry. Haven't you noticed? Gio, if I get sick, you better take care of me. Now she wasn't just a pretentious coquette, she was also clingy as hell. I asked, are you saying I puked on you? She immediately launched into a complaint. Not only did you puke on me, you also got it all over yourself. And then you had the nerve to claim I puked on you. And you even made me wash your clothes. I summoned the system in my mind. only to realize, shockingly, that she was telling the truth. Too much alcohol really does mess you up. Booze is nothing but trouble. I asked. You washed all my clothes. To be honest, I was starting to feel a little guilty. She said, Gio, I've never met anyone who treats a lady so poorly. She held up her hands and added, do you know what these hands are usually used for? Not laundry. But you stood right there and supervised me, saying if I didn't wash them properly, I couldn't go to sleep. She did sound a little wronged. I rubbed my temples and said, all right, no more of that. Last night was my bad. I'll give you some money as compensation. Just go. I had more important things to do, because someone like Willow wouldn't give up that easily. Sure enough, once I got myself together and stepped out the door, she was waiting for me in the lobby, still putting on that untouchable princess act. She gave a cold snort and said, George, from now on, you're not allowed to see that woman again. I asked. Miss Lou, no. Ms. Lou, what does this have to do with you? She said. George, I'll forgive you this time, but I hope there won't be a next. I laughed and said, Ms. Lou, have you forgotten? You're already engaged. I looked at her like I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Maybe your memory's not that great, you even forgot to tell your fiancé to come pick you up. But no worries, I've already let Mr. Ito know for you. I didn't miss the stunned look all over her face. After I said that, I turned around and added, Ms. Lou, there's something I've been meaning to tell you for a long time. I hope that when I come back, I won't have to see you. Honestly, after 3 years, Willow should have figured out my preferences by now. When I saw her waiting in the hotel lobby holding a lunchbox, I directly sent Makoto my location. From the stairway landing, I saw Makoto scolding her, and Willow's face was full of shame. She clutched his arm, apologizing repeatedly, wiping away tears from the corners of her eyes. I couldn't hear it clearly, only bits and pieces. But I did catch one thing. Willow choked out. Makoto, you know it, I only love you. We just need to endure this a little longer. One loved passionately, one loved with restraint, and then there was me, an outsider, involved, yet completely out of place. I had no idea what Willow told him, but in the end, Makoto still nodded hesitantly. I watched as he tapped the tip of her nose, and she broke into a smile through her tears and threw herself into his arms, saying, I knew it, Makoto's the best. And honestly, I was starting to find this whole thing amusing. I stepped out openly and, seeing the two of them all lovey-dovey, I cheerfully offered, you two got engaged, right? I never got the chance to congratulate you. Willow quickly pulled herself away from Makoto and tried to explain. I cut her off. I didn't want to hear it. I turned to Makoto and said, Mr. Ito, you can stop sending me those photos. Let's go with what we agreed on before. I'll resign and leave Willow. I'd said the same thing to Makoto once before, back before their engagement. Back then, he'd come to confront me, trying to intimidate me. He probably didn't expect me to say it again now, and definitely not in a setting like this. His face was full of hesitation, unsure of how to respond. I looked directly at Willow and said, Ms. Lou, I've worked at Lou Corporation for 3 years. I'm grateful for everything the company has done for me. I've already sent my resignation letter to your father and to HR. I won't disturb your date any further. Sure, the Wong Corporation went bankrupt, and I, a former second-generation heir, was left with nothing. But that didn't mean I had to survive by clinging to others. If it weren't for the system's mission, there's no way I would have stayed at Lou Corporation. To be honest, leaving someone feels impossible at first, but once the decision is made, it's surprisingly easy to let go. Just as I was about to walk away, Willow grabbed my arm. I turned to look at her, and maybe the look of disgust I couldn't quite hide surprised her, because she suddenly asked, who gave you the right to just resign like that? As we were struggling, the woman who'd stayed in my room that night suddenly appeared again. She didn't waste time. In just one sentence, she rescued me from the awkward situation. Gio, I've been waiting for you for a long time. It was like she knew I wouldn't argue with her in a moment like this. She slipped her arm through mine and said, let's go. I looked at her but didn't return the gesture. Expressionless, I asked, why are you acting so familiar? Are we that close? After we left, I suddenly heard the system's voice in my ear. She said, host, doesn't it feel good to act like this? After being a simp for so many years, I finally grew a spine. I chuckled and said, System Missy, I owe it all to you. And then I heard the system let out a soft, lilting laugh. Gotta admit, it sounded kinda nice. Chapter 5. I left without a second thought. The system asked, that girl just now wasn't bad, was she? She seemed hesitant. Don't tell me. Apart from Willow, you're incapable of liking anyone else, I replied. Don't be ridiculous. I'm just enjoying life. After all this time, I'm finally done being a simp. Why go asking for trouble with another woman? Then I thought of something funny. I asked, do you share my senses? Like, my vision, for example? She replied, no, Host, I don't share your senses, but yes, my field of view is locked around your vicinity. I nodded. That's good enough. I breathed in the sea breeze and said, after playing it safe for so long, you're the one who taught me that sometimes people need to let loose. Soon, my dear sister Missy was about to cry. She whimpered. Wait, you're not seriously going to do this, are you? Can we talk this over? I'm really afraid of heights. I can send you a gorgeous woman instead. Please cancel this dangerous game. Have you not been reading the news? These bungee cords can snap. Help me. I was speechless. Yep, I went bungee jumping. I was shaking a bit before the jump, but afterward, I felt totally reborn. The system stayed silent for a long while. I asked, did I scare you? I was starting to feel a little guilty. She tried to sound tough. Me, scared? Come on, I'm not that kind of system. I grinned. Wanna go again? She trembled as she replied. Please, I'm begging you. Go flirt with someone. Fine, but don't do this again, please. All I did was bungee jump once, but it ended up as tabloid gold. The media painted a vivid picture. If I hadn't been the one involved, even I would have believed it. They claimed I had a breakdown after running into Willow and Makoto on vacation, and chose to risk my life. At least they didn't say I tied a rope to myself and jumped off a building because of heartbreak. Right then and there, I made a decision. I went public. I announced I'd be doing an open interview. I took the time to prepare carefully, only to find the journalists sharper than I expected. But my ultimate weapon, honesty. I answered every question truthfully. I said outright that yes, I had loved Willow once. One reporter asked, Mr. Wong, is it true you met Ms. Liu before her fiancé, that you've known her longer? I nodded with a smile. Yes, I've known her for exactly 3 years and 1 month. Another asked, is it true you pursued Ms. Liu for a long time? I replied, it wasn't that long, just 3 years. My calm response surprised everyone there. Then came another sharp one. So why didn't she choose you in the end? Do you feel any regret? I smiled and looked straight into the camera. She had every right not to choose me. People have the freedom to choose, and with freedom comes responsibility for the consequences. As for regret, not really. I sincerely wish them a long and happy life together. Another journalist pressed further. We heard you once took the hit for Ms. Liu at a drinking party and ended up in the hospital. Are you sure you're really over her? I said. People need to learn when to let go. Recognizing reality and cutting your losses is the right thing to do. The reason I'm doing this interview today is to say goodbye to the past. If I can, I hope to meet someone in the future who's truly worth cherishing. But just when I thought I'd handled it all with poise, the reporter cut in one last time. Mr. Wong, if you've really let go, then why were you seen yelling on the beach like a madman? I looked up at her and asked, let me ask you this, if you just went through a breakup, would yelling at someone be a crime? My honesty made the whole interview go surprisingly smoothly, but right after it ended, just as I was approaching the alley near my hotel, a speeding car hit me. I passed out instantly. In the dream, I relived a lot of moments from my simp days. God, it was humiliating. In that dream, the system said, when you wake up, pretend you don't remember anyone. I wanted to ask her why, but she never said another word. I must have slept for a long time. When I finally opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was Willow. She looked like she hadn't slept all night, completely exhausted. I opened my mouth to speak, but she grabbed my hand excitedly and said, George, you're finally awake. Then I remembered what the system told me. I quickly pulled my hand back and asked, who are you? Why am I here? Nurses came and went. Willow's face seemed frozen. She carefully asked if I remembered who she was. I shook my head, and so, she calmly chose to lie. She said, I'm your wife. Chapter 6. If it were someone else, waking up with amnesia, confused about their situation, and they saw a stunning woman in luxury fashion standing there, claiming to be their wife, they'd probably believe it. I mean, what would a rich heiress even want from you? But the truth was, she did lie. So I asked her bluntly, are we married? Missy whispered in my ear. You sound a little too eager there. Host, tone it down. Willow's response caught me slightly off guard. She said, we're just boyfriend and girlfriend for now. We're not married yet. Oh. I patted my chest and said each word slowly and clearly. Well, that's a relief. Let me tell you, marriage is a grave you don't jump into lightly. Willow was speechless. She pressed her lips together and said, George, even though we're not married yet, I already accepted your proposal. It's just a matter of time. I was so scared when you got into that car accident. Just then, I noticed someone barging in through the door, and I smiled at her. Well then, my dear girlfriend, I'm in terrible pain right now. How about a kiss to make it better? The person at the door froze in place. He looked like he was about to say something, but then held back. Willow hesitated, but eventually leaned closer to me. The moment she sensed someone behind her, she tried to turn around, but I pulled her straight into my arms. I smiled and said, My love, have we been fighting lately? Why do you seem Southwest reluctant to be close to me? Willow gave up resisting altogether, like she was surrendering. She closed her eyes and waited for me to kiss her, but to me, it felt as bland as chewing wax. I pushed her away and pointed to the man behind her. My girlfriend. Don't you think you owe me an explanation? Who is he? Pulling a power move like this, honestly, my system could probably do it even better than me. Even though I could clearly see the rage written all over Makoto's face, Willow had to survive. And to survive, she had no choice but to obey me. Who is he? That phrase. I'd heard it before. It came from Makoto's own mouth. That day had been the one I planned to officially confess my feelings to Willow. She'd told me she'd give me an answer. She did agree to meet me. I made a reservation, prepared a surprise. But just as the mood got romantic, she opened the door, and 2 people walked in. That was my first time seeing Makoto. I still remember his frown. The way he questioned me, it echoes in my mind. I'd wondered why he acted so arrogant. It wasn't until later that I found out. He was Willow's true love. Back then, Willow had said, "He's just a colleague from work." I think he misunderstood our relationship. And now, she was saying the exact same thing. He's just a colleague. She pressed her lips together and added, "He's your subordinate. That's why he came to check on you." Is that so? I asked. I listened to her explanation, then said with a face full of doubt, "This guy's got the shadiest looking face I've ever seen. I hated him the moment I laid eyes on him. Fire him." Chapter 7. It's not like I want to play the role of some toxic, villainous side character, but back when Willow was the one hurting me, she didn't feel the slightest bit sorry. I once drank for her so much I vomited blood and got hospitalized. And what did she do? She called me from the other end of the line to say her best friend had just gone through a breakup and needed comforting. So she couldn't make it, told me to rest well and focus on recovery. But the next day, I saw a tabloid article on Weibo. She was vacationing by the sea, with Makoto. Stuff like this happened too many times. So often, in fact, that I once asked the system, "Missy, tell me, if I didn't have this mission to complete, would I still be acting this way toward her?" But I wasn't really asking. I was trying to convince myself. When my stomach was in excruciating pain, I was alone. When I was lying helpless on a hospital bed, I was alone. So late at night, when the world was quiet, I would talk to the system, though most of the time, I was the only one speaking, and she just listened. Looking at Makoto's barely contained anger, and Willow's conflicted expression, I suddenly smiled. All right, I'm kidding. He's such a good employee. How could I judge him by his looks and just fire him like that? Then I turned to Makoto with a grin. Seriously though, real friends show up in hard times. Thanks for thinking of me. Come over to our place sometime. Have your sister-in-law cook up a few of her best dishes. We'll share a drink or two. The words your sister-in-law made his face flush red with rage, but I didn't care. With my current status, everything I did was technically justified. I recovered quickly and returned to work soon after. Once again, Willow wanted me back in the marketing department, but I asked to transfer to planning instead. I was always better suited to proposal writing anyway. Back then, I'd volunteered to join marketing just so I could stay close to Willow, and I ended up constantly cleaning up her messes. She got used to it, left everything to me, and I did all the work. Willow tried to persuade me. She said, "If you go to the planning department, we won't even be on the same floor. I won't be able to see you all the time. What if I miss you?" I looked at her, puzzled. Romance and work were never supposed to mix. Willow, were our boundaries really that blurred before? Pushing back like this was something I wouldn't dare do while I still had the mission. Being questioned like this was something Willow couldn't afford to argue with, because of the mission. In the end, I got what I wanted. Close enough to be present, distant enough to breathe, and I genuinely threw myself into my work. Apparently, Willow had told everyone in the company I'd lost my memory. Behind my back, people laughed. They said those who lose their memories tend to forget the most humiliating things, which meant I must have been a pathetic simp, so pitiful I'd erased it all from my own mind. One day, Manager Lee from the planning department mentioned a company dinner that evening. I figured I'd always been the aloof one, so I agreed right away. But when I arrived, I realized this wasn't any kind of regular company dinner. Sitting across from me was the same man who had tried to get Willow drunk last time, the one I'd stepped in to protect her from, the one with mafia ties, Martin. Seated around him were a few shady-looking guys with cocky smirks. One look at them, and you could tell they were trouble. I asked, "Manager Lee, didn't you say this was a company dinner?" He smiled and replied, "George, haven't you been dying to land this proposal and prove yourself? Besides, we all know you can really hold your liquor." There were 2 possibilities. Either he assumed I'd lost my memory and forgotten the time I drank so much I vomited blood, and was trying to mess with me. Or, he was testing whether I really had amnesia. Across from me, Martin grinned. "George, long time no see. We didn't get to drink enough last time. Huh. Manager Lee added. Our George had a car accident and hit his head. Lost some memories. President Bye. Don't take it personally. Martin laughed. Well, now it makes sense. George, we used to be tight, and now you don't even recognize your buddy. Come on, drink 3 penalty shots. I closed my eyes to steady myself, forced a smile, and downed 3 glasses in a row. Then I said I wasn't feeling well and needed to use the bathroom. But as I stood up, Martin gave his guys a look, and a few of them followed me out. Escape wasn't an option anymore. I headed into the restroom, but 2 of his men stood guard at the door. At this point, calling the cops wouldn't help. The only person who could understand what I was facing was Willow. So I sent her a quick message, but just as it went through, I got a reply. I'm working with your wife. Hesitating over what that meant, I didn't even have time to react. Manager Lee stormed into the bathroom with a few guys and dragged me back to the private room. Martin dropped the pretense and sneered. I've hated your guts for a long time. What kind of useless loser dares to mess up my plans? Acting all righteous and noble. Love playing the hero and drinking for others. Fine, this time, I'll make sure you drink till you drop. He had 2 men pin me down and started pouring alcohol down my throat. It was that classic nightmare moment, screaming into a void with no one to hear you, until rage boiled over. I grabbed a beer bottle and smashed it over the head of the guy next to me. The glass shattered. In the same motion, I swiped the broken bottle across Manager Lee's wrist. They all froze for a moment. That was all I needed. I lunged forward, wrapped my arm tightly around Martin's neck, and pressed the jagged bottleneck against his carotid artery. Only then did the chaos finally stop. The police showed up, and we were all taken to the station. Willow rushed in later, her face pale, makeup half gone. She immediately noticed the blood on my face and opened her mouth to speak, but her voice caught in her throat. Martin was curled up in a corner, being treated. Gone was the smug arrogance. Now he looked utterly pathetic. The station had already confirmed that Martin had organized an assault and committed intentional injury. Digging deeper, they even found an old unsolved case tied to him. He was done for. When I walked out, Willow threw herself into my arms, crying. I'm so sorry, babe. I only just saw your message. I asked. Willow, where were you before this? She bit her lip and said. At work. I pushed her away and looked at her coldly. You mean you were working with Makoto? That's why you didn't get the message? Right now, I was playing the role of a husband catching his wife in the act. She lowered her eyes. George, we were just working. Makoto just didn't want to be disturbed. That's all. I laughed bitterly. Willow, don't lie. If you were busy, why was your phone in his hands? And don't tell me you didn't read the whole message. I was clear. It was Martin. He sent people after me. I asked you to call the police. I paused, then added. And what did Makoto say in response? I'm working with your wife. That sound normal to you? What did he tell you? Exactly. Also, I saw you'd already finished work when I left, so where exactly were you 2 working overtime? Just the 2 of you. When I turned and left, Willow stayed frozen in place for a long time. Walking alone down the street, I let out a long sigh. I said, Missy, do you think I'm pathetic, being treated like a damn dog all these years? Even now, when her life literally depends on marrying me, she still. I stopped mid-sentence, afraid the system might misunderstand. I'm not jealous. I just feel useless, like nobody really cares about me. Ever since my parents died, no one had ever truly cared about me. Then, suddenly, Missy spoke. Go to the alleyway up ahead. What is it? I asked, confused, but still did as she said. Then she asked, do you see the white cat? I crouched down. Yeah, I see it. The cat wasn't scared at all. It just stood there, calmly staring at me. Missy's voice softened. Go ahead and hold it. The white cat was incredibly gentle. When I picked it up, it didn't resist at all. It let me pet and cradle it as much as I wanted, and the soft fur soothed something deep in my chest. After playing with the cat for a while, a thought hit me. Missy, this cat isn't you, is it? She stayed silent for a moment, then finally responded. Chapter 8. Missy could only stay inside an animal's body for a short time, but still, she accompanied me through the night as I rushed home by taxi. Just before I entered the house, the white cat licked my palm, then leapt up onto the wall and disappeared. The next day, I submitted my resignation to HR again. Of course, Willow came to stop me. After all, her survival depended on me. I looked her in the eyes and plainly said, we're breaking up. Willow grabbed my sleeve and said, George, don't talk nonsense. Breaking up is impossible. I pried her hand away and said, Miss Lou, aren't you the one talking nonsense? I pulled out my phone and pointed at the news article about her engagement. Seriously, Miss Lou, no wonder so many people have issues with me lately. So you're already engaged to someone else. What is it with you two? Some kind of twisted kink for married couples? Given my supposed memory loss, this kind of accusation was more than reasonable. Even Willow couldn't come up with a rebuttal right away. I went straight to Lou Corporation's biggest rival and took a new job without a shred of guilt. Truth is, my skills were always good enough to make me shine in the industry. When I found out the client was into golf, I grabbed my bag and headed straight to the course. I didn't hold back. I chose the semi-pro blue tee and hit a drive over 280 yards with my driver on the first swing. Everyone was stunned. The client immediately showed interest and even challenged me to a betting match. Of course, I wasn't going to gamble money. Instead, I proposed this. If I won, I'd earn a fair shot at future opportunities. I won. And somehow, someone uploaded a video of my game online. It instantly sparked heated discussion. Only after seeing the news did Willow contact me. She said, "George, I didn't even know you could play golf. I was busy scheduling a meeting and didn't have time to answer her call." I said, "Miss Lou, I'm capable of a lot more than you think. And for the record, I played golf before I met you. Even a fallen rich kid was still once a rich kid. It's just that she never cared to learn about my past." I said, "Miss Lou, if there's nothing else, I'll hang up now." Then I added with a deliberately heavy sigh, "I'm at Kim Corporation now. I think it's best we keep our distance." When I missed my parents, I'd sometimes head to a bar for a drink, and if I was in the mood, I'd even hop on stage and steal a song or two from the house singer. Willow saw a video someone posted of me singing and messaged me with grievance. "George, you've never sung for me." Willow wasn't used to me acting like the world didn't revolve around her, let alone now. When my career was on the rise and I had plenty of attractive women around me, she came to question me directly. "George, do you not love me anymore?" Some words, when said too often, even the speaker starts to believe them. "I love you," I'd said that countless times over the past 3 years. She always accepted them, but never truly responded. This time, I smiled and said, "Miss Lou, although you say we're a couple, you know I've lost my memory. To be honest, with how I feel right now, I honestly can't imagine what I ever saw in you. And one more thing, Miss Lou, from now on, let's rely on our own merits." Chapter 9. Not only can I play golf, but I can also stand on stage and show who I really am. Once again, I stood in front of Willow, this time, in a competitive case between two companies. I was working my tail off for the Kim Corporation, while she and Makoto showed up just for appearances. This time, I successfully landed a deal worth tens of millions for the company. The CEOs of the two companies were still exchanging pleasantries on the side, but out of the corner of my eye, I caught Willow stealing glances at me now and then, and Makoto's face looked like he'd just swallowed a lemon. When it was over, Willow stopped me and said, "George, can we talk?" Makoto stood beside her, clearly frustrated but too scared to speak. I gladly agreed. This was the first time I ever heard Willow say to me, "George, I feel like there's something different about you." Truth is, nothing had changed. I just stopped pretending to like her. I looked at her half-jokingly and said, "Maybe I've just gotten more confident lately." But she answered seriously, "You really have become more confident," as if afraid I wouldn't believe her. She added, "I didn't even know you were this good at putting together proposals." What a joke. Willow honestly has a talent for self-gaslighting. Back then, I was the one writing all her proposals, but just because she was the one presenting them on stage, she convinced herself it was all her own brilliance. So I smiled and asked, "Then it seems you never really understood me. If you thought I was so incompetent before, why were you so hung up on me?" She shook her head. "That's not it." Suddenly, as if she couldn't find a better reason, she added in a flustered voice, "George, I really do like you." I looked at her and continued, "Miss Lou, I can't even remember ever liking you." Then, with complete disdain, I added, "Besides, I have zero interest in being part of whatever weird roleplay you and your husband have going on." I turned to leave, without giving her any chance to react. But just as I took a step, she grabbed my arm. Her voice trembled as she said, "George, if I can't be with you, I'll die." I shook her hand off my arm and said, "Miss Lou, don't joke about that. Dying. You'll live a long, long life. After all, bad weeds grow tall," I went on. "Also, I have a girlfriend now. It's Sophia, the one you met before. I'd appreciate it if you didn't bother us anymore." Before leaving that city, I had given Sophia my contact info. She seemed genuinely interested in me, but I made it clear from the start that I was just using her. Walking out of the building, I felt a little conflicted. I took leave from work, told my boss I wasn't feeling well, and then crouched by the roadside watching a cat. I asked, "Missy, can you turn into this cat?" She sounded confused. "Technically yes, but what are you planning?" I replied. "I just want a hug." It had been 3 years without a partner, and now, I'd sunk to the point of wanting comfort from small animals. Soon, she slowly leaned against me, her whole body pressing gently into mine. If I weren't wary of what a stray cat might carry, I would have hugged her even longer. I spoke sincerely. These past 3 years, Thank you, at least you've always stayed with me. I kept talking to her for a long while. She was the perfect listener, quiet and patient. Suddenly, a child's voice cut through the moment. Mom, I caught a cat thief. Startled, I looked up and saw a boy standing in front of me, saying, Mister, why are you stealing my cat? My hand froze in mid-pet. Sorry, I said. I thought it was a stray. You are a cat thief, the kid yelled, refusing to be calmed down. Even when his parent came over, I quickly put the cat down and handed it back. But the little cat trotted up to the boy, and immediately started mock digging at him like he was a litter box. Missy's move stunned me. The kid cried even louder. While I was busy trying to help the parent calm him down, a familiar voice called out from behind me. George. I broke off the engagement with Makoto. Chapter 10. The engagement between the Liu family and the Ito family had been a grand affair back then, and now the breakup was even more widely known. She cried on camera, saying everything was her fault, that she had mistaken youthful confusion for love. Between the lines, she vaguely hinted that she had also been deceived by a scumbag. She was just short of directly saying, the one she really loved was me. As I watched the woman crying with pear blossom-like tears on screen, I suddenly felt she wasn't worth it. I said, Missy, I finally understand why I'm upset. I'm not upset because I chased someone for 3 years and didn't get her. I'm upset because I chased this kind of person for 3 years, even though I know she only did it to survive. After work, I was running a hot bath at home when I heard a knock at the door. Willow showed up uninvited. Sitting on the couch, I pinched the bridge of my nose and asked, weren't you the one who said we needed to talk? Why aren't you saying anything now? After a long silence, she bit her lip and said, George, I've broken off the engagement. Can we start over now? I almost couldn't stop myself from laughing. I said, Miss Liu, I don't understand what you mean by that. I took out my phone and handed Willow a photo of Sophia. I said, I told you, I have a girlfriend now. I had deliberately asked Sophia to send me some flashy, sexy photos, and sure enough, they pissed Willow off. She suddenly pulled a dagger from her bag, charged at me, and pointed the knife at me, screaming hysterically, George, you can only love me. Why are you loving someone else? Damn, she had completely lost her mind. She shouted furiously, George, that Sophia is not a good girl at all. Do you even know what kind of job she has? And you don't feel dirty being with her? She had even investigated her. I tried to speak calmly, put the knife down first. Willow seemed provoked by the sexy photos. She took off her coat, revealing a camisole underneath. She said, George, you'd have to be blind to fall for Sophia. Look at me. Aren't I beautiful? What does she have that I don't? Beautiful. My ass. I took the opportunity when she wasn't paying attention and bolted. In a panic, I had no choice but to run into the bathroom. I looked around for a weapon but found nothing handy. My mind was a mess, and I couldn't calm down. Desperate, I said, System, do you have anything I can use? She replied, Sorry, host, I can't interfere. Missy's voice sounded a little panicked. She even tried to materialize herself into a physical being, at least something alive, but she couldn't possess a human body. I sighed and said, I got it. Outside the door, Willow started crying and apologizing. Then after knocking for a while, she fell silent. To be honest, the first time I heard the system's voice in my head, I was dumbfounded. But now, she was the only thing keeping me calm. So I thought, even if Willow killed me, she wouldn't be able to live with it. Unless she lost control completely, I wouldn't actually be in danger. Once I figured that out, I reassured the system, I'm fine. Don't worry. I continued running water into the bathtub. When Willow was a kid, she had been pushed into a pond by classmates who resented the rich. Since then, she'd had a deep fear of water. I filled the bathtub all the way and opened the door. Willow was squatting outside. The moment she saw the door open, she stood up. She seemed a bit calmer now. She said, Sorry, George. I lost control earlier. That's what she said. But the knife in her hand was still pointed at me. I said, Then give me the knife first. She looked up at me, but continued speaking as if she hadn't heard. George, I always thought I didn't like you. I hated how you kept chasing me. I hated how, no matter how badly I treated you, you'd always come back to coax me. But then one day, you suddenly stopped showing up. And suddenly, I panicked. I thought maybe I didn't hate you that much. Maybe I even missed you a little. I was speechless. If this isn't a mental illness, what is? She kept going. What I'm saying is true. You might not believe me, but I got bound to a system. I didn't expect her to actually admit something like that. I stared at her, shocked. She gave a self-mocking laugh and said, You don't believe it either, right? Even I don't believe it myself. I asked, What system? What kind of nonsense are you talking about? Missy reminded me just in time. Host, please don't question the system. I could only apologize 1,000 times silently in my heart. Willow said again. It's true. Right when I got engaged, This voice suddenly appeared in my head. She said she was a system. I asked, and what does this system do? She looked me straight in the eye and said, she told me to get engaged to my true love, or I'd die. Chapter 11. I asked, so this is why you broke up with Makoto? There was only cold sarcasm left in my heart. I said, she told you to find your true love, and you're saying Makoto can't be your true love? She nodded. Yes, the system told me he's not my true love. What kind of ridiculous system gives you a mission and the answer in advance? What is this? An open book test? I asked, so you're saying this system told you I am your true love? She replied, that's right. Seeing the disbelief on my face, she added, I didn't believe it either at first, but now, I have no choice but to believe it. She kept moving closer, narrowing the space between us. She said, George, I've truly fallen for you now. We were meant to be together. Can we be together? You don't want me to die, do you? I honestly felt nauseated. I stepped back and tried to calm her down. I said, this so-called system. Are you sure you're not just having some kind of mental issue? Couldn't it just be auditory hallucinations? She paused, then changed her approach. George, everything you did for me before, I saw it all. I just hope we can try giving each other a chance. I became even more puzzled. I said, let's ignore the fact that I have amnesia now. According to what you said, you noticed everything I did for you back then. So why did you choose Makoto instead of me? She didn't look happy about that. She said, George, don't even think about leaving me. I'm moving in here from now on. I said, so, how about we shower together? I suddenly asked. Willow looked completely dumbfounded, but she thought I was after her body. I controlled the distance as I pulled her into the bathroom. She looked at me warily, then frowned as she saw the bathtub filled to the brim with water. She hesitated, but I wrapped my arms around her and said, what? Having second thoughts, didn't you say you liked me? She frowned slightly and said, if this means you'll marry me. I smiled and took the knife from her hand. I said, then kiss me. Obediently, she stood on tiptoe and kissed me, completely unguarded, but in the next second, I shoved her hard and, at the same time, swept her legs out from under her. She fell straight into the bathtub. The moment her head hit the water, she panicked. I held her head down, making her hold her breath for a few seconds. Then I yanked her up by the hair. She gasped violently, gulping air. I said, Willow, just this once. If you mess with me again, I will kill you. Chapter 12. Willow panicked and ran off. I picked up my phone and called Sophia. I told her I had something important to talk about. She replied, then wait for me. Okay, I'll be right over. When Sophia arrived, she was clearly in a rush. Her hair was messy, and her coat wasn't even on properly. She asked, did you have a falling out with Willow? Willow's public statement had stirred up quite a bit of attention, so she must have heard something. I smiled and said, I was never on good terms with her in the first place. So what's there to fall out over? She seemed to hesitate and said, Brother Wong, actually, Willow's not that bad. Even though she was engaged before, she never actually got married. And now she's so in love with you, are you really not going to consider it? I replied, what? Didn't you tell me before to consider you? She pouted and said, I would love to be with Gio, but Gio doesn't want me. She sounded so pitiful, any regular guy would probably already be falling for it. I reached out and touched her face. She gave me a sweet smile, but I just brushed past her lips. I said, next time you say stuff like that, at least fix your makeup. The lipstick on her lips was smudged all over. I had no idea who had kissed her before she got here. She blinked and said, Gio, if we get together, I promise I'll treat you really well. I replied, yeah, right. If I got with you, wouldn't that just mean getting cheated on even more times? I laughed and added, right now, I'm just not interested in women. Suddenly, something came to mind. I said, come with me to do something. She asked, what is it? I said, buy a cat. She looked curious and asked, why are you buying a cat all of a sudden? I replied, to keep me company and talk to me, quietly. Then I heard Missy's voice, host, you're not thinking of doing something weird with me, are you? Action speaks louder than words. If I'm going to do it, I'm doing it big. I went straight out and bought a fat orange tabby, but when I called out to Missy through the cat, she said in my head, too fat, don't even think about it. I tried to reason with her that the orange cat had a gentle personality, but just then, some breaking news came through. My background had been completely dug up and exposed online. To be honest, I had never taken the initiative to talk about the fact that I was an orphan. Back then, my dad was accused of embezzling company funds and defaulting on employee wages. Crushed by public opinion, he ended his life by jumping off a building. My mom sold everything that could be turned into money to compensate the workers, and then followed my dad in death. Her method was incredibly tragic. She told me we were going on a trip to relax. She bought me new clothes and treated me to my favorite fried chicken. While I was sitting in the car eating quietly, she looked at me and said, George, you're such a good boy, but I also faintly heard her whisper, George, I'm sorry. I tried my hardest not to show my fear, but she drove faster and faster. She was determined to die, but right before we hit something, she swerved the steering wheel slightly. The guardrail pierced through her body. With her fading breath, she told me, George, remember, your dad didn't embezzle the money. When I was rescued, I was in such a panic that I felt utterly ridiculous. Why did she say all that? What was I, a kid, supposed to do with it? The internet was flooded with posts saying my parents were scammers, and that I must be rotten to the core too. I became a rat scurrying across the street. Everyone wanted to crush me. People say online hate can kill, and sure enough, the internet was filled with messages telling me to go die. Some even spread rumors that karma had come for me, that I got fired from my job, and that my girlfriend ran off with someone else. It was then that Willow took the initiative to call me. She said earnestly, George, I told you a long time ago, your girlfriend's no good. Come back, okay? I don't care about your past. Chapter 13. Sometimes I think, I'm not a good person either. When she said that, all I felt was the urge to laugh. She must have only come to me reluctantly, just to survive. After all, I found out that this, completely over, thing with Makoto wasn't so over. There were even photos of them hugging. What financial news couldn't catch? Gossip news certainly could, but I'd figured it out. This is all normal. Love is a fickle thing. If you force it, it doesn't taste sweet. So even when I heard what she said or saw the photos of them together, I didn't feel anything. I said, Miss Lou, there's no need for all this. I glanced out the window. The sunlight was just right. I added, Sophia isn't as awful as you think. And besides, I believe in my father. My past isn't something shameful. Miss Lou, there's no need to force yourself like this. Willow was still trying to explain, saying that even if Sophia hadn't dumped me yet, that didn't mean she wouldn't eventually. That the only reason she hadn't left me yet was because she still saw some value in using me. I replied with a meaningful smile. Miss Lou, I doubt she's the only one who thinks I'm still useful, is she? Willow snapped back, annoyed. George, just keep being stubborn. She sounded irritated. I said, Willow, I never understood what you meant about the system before, but 2 days ago, something happened. I suddenly got a system too. Just as I said this, the orange tabby looked up at me. I patted her on the head and said, Go play over there. Daddy will feed you in a minute. The system responded, Host, I strongly suspect you're taking advantage of me. Willow. The silence from the other end made me chuckle. I said, You know what? That day a system told me she had bound to me, and only then did I realize you weren't lying. She replied, Right. Willow seemed relieved and said, George, I told you, I really do like you. And at a time like this, with all the public pressure, you should trust me. Willow. I smiled and said, Please let me finish what I was saying. The system that bonded with me is called the lie detection system. She just told me that everything you said was a lie. Willow didn't believe she had been exposed. She was still trying to test me, figure me out. She gave a cold laugh and said, What kind of joke is this, George? There can't be that many systems. I believe she truly meant that when she said it. I said, When she talks to me, it's like someone whispering directly into my ear, but no one else can hear it. She came with a mission, too. I half lied, half told the truth. I said, My system told me, if the people around me keep lying to me, I'll just get more and more unlucky. So, Willow, it's better we keep some distance between us. I thought of the recent news. And another thing, I find it strange. How did my parents' story get leaked in the first place? I even suspected it had everything to do with her, or Makoto. She said, George, I think, it's because I confessed to you recently. That's probably what made people start digging into your background. I'm sorry. Chapter 14. The truth came out quickly. I don't know what kind of pressure Makoto was under, but he sent me a message directly apologizing. He admitted it was him who had hired someone to investigate me and posted everything online. What followed was Willow pleading with me on Makoto's behalf. I heard her say, Makoto only did it because he loved me too much. I asked, So because you two are in love, that gives you the right to use someone else's past as a stepping stone? The internet was flooded with posts saying I wasn't good enough for Willow. It gave me the perfect excuse. I got to watch the helpless expression on her face. I said, But maybe the netizens are right. Maybe I really don't deserve you. No, please, let me explain. Willow said, I know you must have seen those photos taken of me that day, but the truth is, I met up with Makoto because I wanted to end things for good. That hug was our final goodbye. I swear, I hadn't been in contact with him one-on-one for a long time. He's already resigned and gone to work at another company. The system suddenly chimed in. She said, Everything she just said is true. I held back my curiosity and still sent Willow away. As she walked out the door, she kept turning back, unwilling to leave, repeating, I can wait for you. I don't care what others say about you. I asked the system, how do you know she's telling the truth? Could the system really detect lies? She answered proudly. I asked. I told her I'm a royal princess of the system clan. And then I asked the system on her end. How could it not answer me? I had no other words to describe how great it felt to have that kind of backup. I asked, so you're saying Willow really has fallen for me? I honestly didn't believe it at all, she replied. Let's put it this way, I can only confirm that what she said just now was true. Just then, I saw a new message pop up on my phone. I smiled and said to the system, see, there are things even your kind don't know. Willow told plenty of truths, but not the whole truth. That's when someone knocked on the door. It was Sophia's voice. She said, Gio, let me in, will you? Gio, about the thing you asked me to look into. I wanted to tell you in person. She seemed to be in a rush. She was slightly out of breath and said, Gio, can you get me a glass of water? I'm seriously exhausted. I went to get some hot water and handed it to her. I said, that's weird. Didn't you take a cab here? You sound like you ran all the way. She pursed her lips and said, Gio, you really don't know how to appreciate the moment, do you? She drank a few sips of water and added, look at me, this gorgeous woman right in front of you, and you're still hung up on Willow. Then, getting playful, she leaned in closer and ran her hand along my neck. She said, if you're not willing to marry me, Gio, that's fine too. I won't even make you take responsibility. She even started trying to seduce me in another way. Lifting the edge of her skirt slightly, she said, look at this. But in the very next second, Big Orange suddenly charged over. Just as she lifted her skirt, it raised a paw and smacked her hard. Big Orange bared its teeth and claws, looking fierce. Sophia was completely stunned. Chapter 15. Sophia looked completely stunned. What the hell? Isn't this the cat we bought together? Gio. How come it doesn't recognize me after just a few days? She covered her face and sat back down on the couch. She pointed at the cat, then got timid again and pulled her hand back. That slap actually hurt. You damn orange fatty. The orange tabby jumped back into my arms and rubbed against me. I stroked her head. I could tell it had to be her, because every time she possessed the cat, it would stop meowing entirely. But I didn't say anything out loud. Somehow, I found this whole thing quite amusing. She stayed silent, probably thinking I hadn't noticed. So I simply switched into full-on cat petting mode, rubbing her all over. The big orange tabby was obedient and timid, as if saying, I won't move if you don't move. I said, go ahead, talk. Sophia looked at the cat. This time, she skipped the chatter and said directly, the account that exposed your personal info really is a sock puppet account Makoto created. But here's the weird part, it was a new account he made just before everything happened. I nodded. Makes sense. You can't exactly do this kind of thing from your main account. She said, sure. But, my friend hacked into Willow's devices. All of your info was already stored on her laptop. Yeah, exactly one day before the sock account was created. Oh, and the location where that account was created? It really was from Makoto's home. I couldn't help but imagine a very likely scenario in my head. Willow had known about everything from the beginning. She left the information somewhere Makoto could easily find, so he would be the one to leak it. That way, she wouldn't be the one doing anything. And she could still use the fallout to manipulate me into coming back. Sophia said, Gio, how could that woman be so vicious? Unlike me, I just care about you. She leaned closer again, but Big Orange suddenly stood up, and Sophia backed off. Sitting down again, she frowned. Wait, why does this cat feel so off? Yeah, something really was off. The cat even licked my palm. I said, all right, it's not that big a deal. I was genuinely grateful for this girl. You could say we were just strangers in passing. But she had helped me a lot. If only she didn't always talk like such a pretentious coquette. She said, but I do have something major. She pointed at the cat. Don't glare at me. I'm talking to your owner about something important. Then she unlocked her phone and handed it to me. Forget it. Gio, you take a look yourself. I'm scared it'll bite me. I took the phone. A middle-aged man's face appeared, completely unfamiliar. I asked, who's this? She said, a scammer who just got arrested. She said it so simply, but to me, it felt like I suddenly couldn't understand words. Turned out, everything my mom had said was true. The money from my dad's company had been embezzled by this business partner. He committed the crime. But my parents paid for it with their lives. A wave of dizziness hit me. The edges of my vision went dark and started closing in, shrinking to the size of a needlepoint before exploding into stardust. I was gasping for air, my chest heaving violently, my whole body trembling uncontrollably. But in the very next second, I heard a thump. Sophia had collapsed straight onto the floor. She didn't move. I panicked and reached out to check if she was still breathing. The next second, her eyes opened. I looked at her and asked, are you okay? She sat up, and in my head, I heard a voice. It's me. Chapter 16. Clearly, the earlier shock had been overwhelming. So now, this was pure surprise and joy. I asked, "Are you the system, Missy?" She nodded, her brows furrowed, as if she couldn't speak. I grabbed her hand, excited, but she immediately yelped and pulled it away. I asked, "Does it hurt?" I could see clearly what kind of state she was in. She shook her head. "No, it's not that painful." She still couldn't use Sophia's body to speak. Her voice was coming from inside my head. Right after that, I saw Sophia come forward and hug me. Naturally, I didn't refuse. I asked, "Does it hurt?" I was sure she was in pain, even though she was doing her best to hide it. She didn't answer my question, but suddenly said, "Don't feel bad anymore." I couldn't promise that, but I still answered obediently. "Okay." Then something occurred to me. I looked at her and asked, "Weren't you not allowed to possess a human body?" She said, "I'm the princess of the System clan. I can always find a way." Missy really made it sound like no big deal. I smiled and said, "I'm already feeling much better. Do you want to change back now?" She replied, "What? You hate me that much? It's my first time appearing like this and you're already trying to get rid of me." I replied, "You know that's not what I mean." But I was honest. I said, "To be frank, I did hate you at first." I gently took her fingertip, making sure the contact area wasn't too big. It was my first time seeing her like this. In a human form, I wasn't quite used to it. I said, "I'm telling you this, so don't get mad, but I did really hate the system. If not for the mission, I wouldn't have forced myself to grovel in front of a woman, begging for her favor even when she humiliated and toyed with me, acting like a simp with zero dignity. Honestly, that feeling of having my self-respect trampled, it was awful. For 3 years, I couldn't even tell whether I really liked her or if I was just trying to complete the task. But I also know, if it weren't for this mission, I'd probably already be half dead, a ghost of a person, with no hope left in life. But still, I'm really glad you were my system." She once again played the role of a good listener. Looking at this person sitting beside me, it was a strange feeling. She was both unreal and completely real. I talked fast, said a lot, like I couldn't stop, and I was worried time was running out. So I let out a yawn and said, "Feeling sleepy a bit early tonight. I think I'll nap for a while. You should go back soon too." It wasn't really nap time. But I could tell she was in pain. Her forehead was drenched in sweat. She replied, "Okay, but I want to watch you fall asleep. Once you're out, I'll go back." She nodded and said nothing else. I looked at her a few more times, smiled, and asked, "Missy, what do you really look like?" She replied, "Me, probably like a fat orange tabby, chubby and lazy." I didn't ask more, maybe because my emotions had been too stirred up earlier. Now I felt a strange peace, and fell asleep quickly. When I woke up again, Sophia was still lying on the couch, fast asleep. I looked around the room, and suddenly saw a painting on the table. It was a portrait of a beautiful, unfamiliar woman. As I stared at it, I suddenly burst out laughing. I murmured to myself, "Such a lie, not even a bit fat, and seriously good looking." Next to the painting, on a sheet of paper, a line of writing had been left. "Let me grant you one last wish." Chapter 17. When Sophia woke up, she looked completely confused. One moment she was saying, "Why do I feel like I ran a marathon? I'm so tired." The next she asked, "Did you drug me or something? How else would I just pass out like that?" Then she complained, "My head kinda hurts." I had to come up with an excuse. I said, "You just seemed super tired. You fell asleep in seconds and didn't even respond when I tried to wake you." She asked, "And how do you know I wasn't sick?" I hesitated, then pulled another excuse, "Because you drooled in your sleep." She didn't care much. She squinted at me and said, "No way." "But still, Gio, I was totally asleep, and you didn't even try anything. There's gotta be something wrong with your libido." I was speechless. Very soon, the truth behind my dad's old case came out. The same netizens who had been relentlessly attacking me suddenly slammed the brakes, acting like it was no big deal, and even tossed in a line like, "Well, his parents did kill themselves out of guilt. Can't blame us for assuming the worst." I couldn't care less about them, because Missy had vanished. No matter how I called her, she never appeared again. As for Willow, I watched her chase after me again and again, using every trick in the book. One time, she was crying and begging me not to be so heartless, asking me to consider her feelings. So I asked her, "Do you hate your system?" She couldn't answer, but I said it clearly. "I hate mine." She sensed something was off. She asked, "George, what system are you talking about?" I smiled and said, "Willow, doesn't it feel like hell, being bound to a romance-targeting system?" She panicked suddenly. "What are you talking about?" Clearly, she realized something was wrong, but I ignored her and kept going. I used to feel the same way, like I'd rather be dead. You accepted everything I gave you without guilt. You enjoyed how I treated you. You didn't reject me, but you didn't accept me either. You kept me hanging. You let me circle around you like a dog. Every time I found a little hope. You doused me in cold water. When I turned to leave, you gave me just enough warmth to drag me back in. You said you'd give me a chance. You wanted to see how I performed. So you had me run errands, do this and that, and when I didn't meet your expectations, you'd blow up at me and call it setting boundaries. I get it. The attitude you wanted was complete submission. But even when I gave you everything, you still found fault, and when the day of our agreement came, you brought Makoto just to humiliate me. Willow, when you humiliated me, did you ever consider how I felt? I said. Honestly, I've never been afraid of death. Then, with all the malice I could muster, I added, you lied and pretended to be my wife, fine, but dragging my parents' tragedy into the public eye. Willow, how shameless can you be? She choked out. I'm sorry. I just wanted to be with you so badly. Please, I'm begging you, give me one more chance. Of course, Willow, I said. It all depends on your performance. Willow, all I'm asking for is an attitude. From the moment I wrote that wish on that piece of paper, I'd already made up my mind. I won't be a good person, and back then, I didn't want to die, either. Chapter 18. Missy still didn't show up. I just carefully folded the painting she left behind and placed it in my drawer. Ironically, without the system's constraints, I ended up seeing more of Willow than ever. When I sat in front of my parents' graves, talking to them, she sat beside me and kept me company. When I went to bars to drown my sorrows, she worried about my stomach and brought me home to make soup. When I got off work, she would be waiting downstairs with a homemade bento in hand. Makoto came to see me again, but before he could even say a word, Willow drove him away. Even when I made it clear that I was rejecting her, she still said she really loved me. I told her how disgusted I was by everything she'd done, and she actually went out and publicly apologized, admitted everything had been her doing, said she was willing to accept all the consequences, as long as I could forgive her, as long as I would look at her again. Later, wherever I went, she followed. Every demand I made, she accepted. Every attitude I asked for, she gave. And then, she got into a car accident trying to save me, the day I proposed to Willow. She put the ring on with tears in her eyes. I didn't know whether she was happy I was finally willing to marry her, or if it was because she felt the mission was about to be completed. But I've never thought of myself as a good person. The one I always wanted to see was someone else. So, on the day of the engagement, the final day of the mission, I ran away. I went up to the rooftop again and said, Missy, if you still don't show up, I'm jumping. As expected, threats didn't work. I gave a helpless smile and said, forget it, I won't lie to you anymore. I let out a long sigh. I'll live a good life. After all, this was the second chance you gave me. Missy, I remember everything now. Back when the car accident happened, someone whispered quietly in my ear, do you want to keep living? Extra, Anna. I used to be called System No. 001. I was ranked No. 1 at the System Academy. Because of my exceptional mission performance, I was granted a new name, Anna. It was considered an honor. Everyone congratulated me. This time, my assigned target was a spoiled rich second-generation heir, or at least, he looked like one before his family fell apart. When I received him, he was already clinically dead. Car crash, fatal on the scene. I gave him another chance. I asked him, do you want to live? At that moment, I barely managed to pull back a sliver of breath into him. He couldn't even speak. His lips were trembling. His gaze was vacant, but he still nodded, slowly and with great difficulty. And so, I watched the paramedics arrive and save him. Once he recovered, it was time for me to reap the results. I watched him, standing in a freezing snowstorm with frostbitten hands and feet, just because Willow wanted a limited edition purse and made him wait in line to buy it. And while rubbing his hands, he told me, Missy, back in school, some classmates locked me in the bathroom to rough me up. Little did they know, I weaponized what the toilet had to offer and launched a magic attack. In the end, no one could get in or out. Their leader panicked, jumped out the window, and broke his leg. I watched him, trying to learn to cook just because Willow once said, guys who can cook are a plus. And on the very first chop, he sliced his hand open while cutting ribs. He winced through the pain and said, Missy, learning to cook isn't so bad. Actually, I used to be lazy and picky about food. It's time I changed. Too bad my parents won't get the chance to try it. I watched him, rushing to Willow's side every time she called, never once complaining. While her friends mocked him as a pathetic simp, on the surface, he smiled like it was nothing, but privately, he whispered to me, Missy, I don't know how much longer I can take this, but whatever. I'll push through. I'm George, after all. Hey, want me to tell you a few jokes? I watched him, taking drinks for her over and over again. While she didn't show an ounce of concern, he'd whisper to me afterward, "My stomach really hurts, but at least I don't feel heartache anymore. Can you tell me a joke for once?" I'm running out of material. I watched him get punched by Makoto, then hit back, only for Willow to scream, "Get out of here. Who the hell do you think you are, hitting Makoto? You want me to call the cops on you?" And I suddenly started to feel like a terrible person. As a system, what right did I have to make excuses? I glanced at the Academy rule board, the rules that every student has etched into their bones. Rule number 1. Do not fall in love with your host or you will die. Before his mission failed, I watched him feeding the stray cat he'd been caring for over 2 years. He said to the cat, "Buddy, you know why I never adopted you?" He still had a smile on his face when he said, "Because I'd be a terrible owner. I don't think I'll live long enough." It was like he knew from the start his mission would fail. That moment, I made a decision. I would grant him a wish. I forcibly linked him to another system. Part of me was curious. What would it look like to see someone who was once so powerful get stepped on? But honestly, I just wanted to see George smile. Maybe I just couldn't bear to let George die. So I turned into a little cat to comfort him. But when I saw how much he was suffering from what happened to his parents, I broke the second Academy rule. Rule number 2. Do not possess a human or you will die. Dead is dead. One more sin won't make a difference. But inhabiting a human body hurt like hell. Every movement felt like being sliced open. So I gave him another wish. As long as he wrote it on paper, I could make it come true. After all, I was the most outstanding system. Everyone called me the crown princess of the system realm, didn't they? But then he asked me, "Missy, what do you look like?" And I hesitated. I suddenly wanted to let him see me. Just once. That's enough. After all, in time, everyone forgets me anyway. Extra, Alicia. Chapter 1. The first time I met George. He showed up at my door with a simple bag slung over his shoulder. I looked at him, confused, but he was beaming with excitement and asked, "Hi, I'm George. Are you the person online who keeps digging and digging inside a tiny little heart?" Being called out face to face by my screen name caught me completely off guard. I almost broke character right there. I looked at him warily and asked, "What do you want?" He replied, "It is you. That's great." Then he leaned in mysteriously and said, "Can I ask you something about systems? I have some really important questions." Later, I found out, he, just like me, had lost his system. Chapter 2, he asked, "So you're saying, I really have a chance to see her again? Ugh, why can't this guy understand plain language? What happened to the conditions I mentioned?" I rolled my eyes and said, "I said the condition, didn't I? You can only see her if you die," he responded. "I know." Then he smiled even brighter and said, "No suicide. Gotta take care of my body. Gotta live to an old age and die naturally." I frowned, puzzled. "So why are you so happy about that? If you live to be 100, how many years do you still have to wait?" I couldn't understand his logic at all. Then he asked, "So, did you give up?" I was speechless. I didn't know how to answer. I used to not want to give up. That's why I kept writing stories online over and over again. About me and my system. At first, no one believed me. Now, even I was starting not to believe it anymore. The wait had been too long. So long I started questioning life itself. Chapter 3, he said, he would keep waiting. Chapter 4, he told me a lot about the two of them. From what I heard, he actually seemed genuinely happy. But could he really survive the endless current of time? I noticed that wherever he went, there was always a certain woman nearby. Eventually, I began to understand the entanglement between him and that woman. So I asked if he needed help. He asked me to act with him, put on a little show. He said, "Willow, get lost already. Can't you see I'm busy flirting with a girl here?" Maybe I wasn't acting well enough. That girl named Willow actually said, "George, I know you don't love her. There's no light in your eyes when you look at her." At that moment, George snapped and shouted, "Watch your tone. What am I, Ultraman? You think I've got light in my eyes? If I did have laser eyes, I'd blast you to pieces first." Chapter 5. George looked off into the distance at Willow and said, "I'm actually not a good person. I was sitting at the doorstep drinking with him, and he actually finished all the food. Seriously, leave some for the rest of us." His eyes were damp. He lowered his voice and said, "I really didn't know she would disappear." He added, "I just wanted a fair kind of revenge. I just wanted to see if she could give me an answer using the same standards she always demanded from me." And so now, because George came all the way here to find me, Willow just followed along, like some annoying little shadow. Honestly, she was starting to get on my nerves. Chapter 6. George got drunk and collapsed on the ground. Willow walked over again. She said, "His stomach's not great. Why did he drink so much?" Can you help me get him back? As soon as she finished that sentence, George suddenly sprang to his feet, then collapsed again. He shouted angrily. If you were going to help, why didn't you help earlier? I was already passed out, now you show up. That just means you didn't really want to help in the first place. Willow frowned. But you told me to get lost. George snapped. I don't understand why you always need to come up with so many excuses. All I ever wanted was a clear attitude. Willow, with that pitiful face again, said. Okay, I'm sorry, it was my fault. Can I help you back now? George sneered. Help me how? What kind of attitude is that? You think I'm pathetic? Think I'm too drunk to walk? Where's Missy? Missy, come help me stand up. Willow looked at me and asked if he was talking to me. I shook my head, then Willow went on. The moment he said my attitude was bad, it really hurt. I really have fallen for him. I was speechless. Chapter 7. George truly had the patience to endure loneliness. He started living a wellness-focused life, trying to be healthy. He wouldn't even stay up late anymore. He said, I still want to meet my system, Missy. I can't afford to lose before I even get the chance to see her. I had to admit, he was far braver than I was. He was betting on decades. He said just having something to hold on to was enough to be happy, but to me, he always seemed so lonely. Chapter 8. Willow got hit by a car and broke her leg, saving George. George stood frozen on the spot. I thought it was shock, but then he said, for a second, I thought I'd never get to see Missy again, and in that moment, I finally understood where I had lost. Maybe he really could make it. Lying in her hospital bed, Willow asked, I've done enough now, right? Do you think he'll finally forgive me this time? I rolled my eyes. That's just pathetic. From bits and pieces, I pieced together the truth. That system named Missy had bound her to a standard correction system. One that was supposed to make her adjust her behavior based on her own standards. But her standards were always shifting, which meant her attitude would never be truly right. Chapter 9. It's the first time I've heard of someone praying to be free from misfortune, yet also wishing for a short life. He tossed in a thick wad of money. Maybe, someday, that moment will come, when he gets to mutter under his breath, Missy, I'm coming to find you. Extra, no. 777. Chapter 1. My name is No. 777. I'm a student at the System Academy. Recently, the Academy admitted a batch of new students. Among them, there was one, No. 143, especially noisy. I don't know why, but from the first day he arrived, he was running around looking for someone. The moment he saw me, he got all worked up and asked, Are you Missy? I mean, look at me. This figure, these curves. Do I not look obviously female? I frowned at him, only to see his emotions completely erupt. And then, he suddenly reached out and started tugging at my clothes. What a scumbag. Then he burst out laughing and said, I knew you were Missy. You even have the same birthmark on your neck. I glared and said, Let go of me. Doing this in public, there's no way I can explain this away. But he replied, No way, Missy. I've finally found you. There's no way I'm letting you go. Chapter 2. He pointed at the Academy's Hall of Honor and asked, So your real name is Anna? I shook my head. I'm not her. From what I heard, she was always top-ranked. But yeah, people have always said I look a lot like her. I've heard it more than once. He looked at me, still smiling, and said, All right, you're not her. You're my Missy. I snapped back. I'm not your Missy. But no matter how many times I corrected him, he still called me that. I said, Does your Missy have a figure like mine? His eyes lit up and he said, Well, it's kinda hard to tell through clothes. Why don't you lift your shirt and let me check? I yelled. Someone help me. Chapter 3. He's been getting nosier and nosier lately. Now he recites Academy rules into my ear at random. Do not fall in love with your host. Violation results in death. Do not possess a human body. Violation results in death. What the hell? I'm not an idiot. Like I'd ever do something that reckless. Chapter 4. I saw him grabbing a guy by the arm and saying, Hi, I'm No. 143. I've finally found you. There's a message I promised to deliver from a girl named Alicia. She says she'll remember you forever. The guy's eyes turned red. Then 143 said, Bro, it's okay. Once you die, you'll get to see her again. I was speechless. So much for expecting him to know how to comfort people. Chapter 5. 143's usually yapping nonstop in my ear. But the last few days, he hasn't shown up to class. I'll admit it. I felt a little empty inside. I pretended to casually ask his roommate. And that's how I found out he was sick. So I brought over some porridge I made myself. When I got there, he was lying in bed, mumbling. Crown princess of the system realm, my ass. At most, she's just top salesperson of the month. I had a weird feeling he was talking about me. I called out to him and said, "I brought you some porridge from the cafeteria. Want some?" The moment he saw me, it was like all his energy came back. He nodded enthusiastically. As he ate, he giggled and said, "Thanks for making this porridge just for me." My heart skipped. I forced myself to lie, awkwardly muttering, I bought it from the cafeteria." He grinned and said, "Missy, your spoon got cooked into the porridge. Look, this one even has your serial number." I felt utterly embarrassed, and honestly, a little flushed. Then he said, "Look at that, matching couple spoons. Help me, everyone's spoon in the academy looks the same." Chapter 6. He's terrifying when he's drunk. He aggressively demanded to know why I disappeared without saying a word. Then he asked, "You promised me one wish, so why did the writing on the paper disappear when I wished for you to stay with me?" He said I seduced him and then ran off, that I was just playing with his feelings. God help me, what on earth did this Missy even do to him? She must have been a terrible woman. Then he suddenly reached his hand toward my mouth. I blinked. "What are you doing?" He looked at me like I was hopeless. "You used to do it all the time. Now you've forgotten everything," he mumbled, almost pouting. "It's fine, we'll learn it all again together." Wow, he really is demanding. Chapter 7. He stood in front of the academy's rule board for a long time, carefully reading it. I asked, "That's for new students to memorize, don't you remember it already?" I couldn't help being curious. The board had been the same for 100 years, what could he possibly be studying? He frowned and said, "I'm telling you, I've read every single word on it 100 times. Then, completely serious, he said, "And I found a secret." I perked up. "What secret?" He smirked and said, "The school has a whole list of prohibitions, but nowhere does it say that systems can't date each other." Something inside me stirred. Then he turned to me and said loudly, "Missy, be my girlfriend." Chapter 8. Sometimes I don't like when he calls me Missy. I can't shake the feeling that he's not really calling me. Everything he says, I don't remember any of it. I assume Missy looked just like me. When I told him that, he went quiet for a long time, thinking deeply. In the end, he said, "All right, I'll call you 777 from now on." He seemed a little disappointed. I said, "Fine, you can call me Missy if you want," he replied. "Doesn't matter." Then suddenly, he smiled and said, "I know you two are the same person. You just don't know it yet. Let me tell you something, systems can die. They can be wiped out, but they're also eternal." He looked straight at me and said, "That's why I spent 60 years struggling in the human world, because I knew that truth." 777. I'm really tired. Something about it felt wrong. Tears slid from the corner of my eye before I could stop them. He gently cupped my face and kissed me. He said, "Don't cry. You're making it look like I'm bullying you. Next time something upsets you, just tell me, because if you cry, well, I don't know how to comfort people, so I'll just have to kiss you." Wait, how did we jump from crying to kissing? But as I listened, the corners of my lips curled up, and I thought, if I really am her, maybe that wouldn't be so bad. Chapter 9. He was named one of the academy's top new students. He stood on stage, about to give a speech as a model representative, and he looked straight at me. I had a very bad feeling. Then, he stood in front of the entire academy, looked right at me, and declared at full volume, "No, 777, remember this. I'm no 143, and I love you. You'll always be mine."